everyone, and welcome to my last part of the bone marrow transplantation series. If you haven't watched the first and the second video, then you should do this before. The first video was about how to register as a donor and why, like what is bone marrow transplantation all about. And the second video is about after you registered and if you get chosen as a donor, then what happens next, the medical exams, and yeah. This video is about the transplantation itself. So we finally come to the nitty-gritty, and all the informations on how to register are linked in the info box. There are websites for several countries, and just look for yourself if you find the information you need. As always, I would really love if you share this video because it's such an important case, and the most important thing is that people see this and that people know that bone marrow transplantation is nothing to be scared of, and it's important to share and get many people to register. So thank you. So the last thing we talked about was the medical examination and the injection needles I got to use 1 week before the transplantation. So I went home that evening with a canvas bag full of packages of needles, and I was quite scared to go to the airport with this because, you know, you could use them as a weapon. But do not fear, because the doctors give you an explanation letter for you to show the airport security, and then everything goes like normal. I got back home safely, and now I had to wait for the transplantation date. Mine was at the end of September, but was then pushed 1 week further out to the beginning of October. And I don't really know why, but it's probably because the patient was too weak to get a transplantation at the time and had to recover a bit, which can always happen. Between the medical examinations and the transplantation, I was quite scared to get sick actually, or to get in an accident, because I mean, it's probably like when you're pregnant, you're somehow not only responsible for yourself but for another human being, and when something happens to you, that probably means that the patient will die because he or she doesn't get his transplantation in time. So that always made me really nervous. But I watched myself and nothing happened. Then 5 days before the transplantation, you have to start inject yourself with your needles. That stuff is called GCSF. I have to read that. It's a granulocyte colony stimulating factor. It will stimulate white blood cell proliferation. So I don't know what's exactly medically happening in the body, but basically it lets your body think that you're sick, so it produces a lot more stem cells than usually. This also means that you have like flu-like symptoms. It really depends from person to person. You usually get headaches and bone pains. Mine were really barely there. I noticed that I was feeling a little bit tired over the week, more than usual, and I also felt like a pulse at the base of my spine, and that's basically where your bone marrow is produced, so it's a totally normal feeling. You feel like the blood pumping there or whatever happens. So my doctor, she said to me that there's all this bone marrow and it just gets out into your bloodstream or whatever, and you just feel it more than usual. And some people, like I said, might get a lot more headaches or more bone pains, like, yeah, really like you have a flu or something, but I didn't have any pains. I didn't use painkillers, and even if you get those pains, you really know there's nothing wrong. It's a good thing that you feel those pains. And it's only for 5 days, because after you stop injecting yourself, it goes away instantly. So you have to inject yourself twice a day, and it depends a little bit on your body weight and stuff. So I read somewhere that people might have a double dosage, and I would think that maybe because they are quite big or something, so they could produce a lot more, but I'm not so sure. So for me it was 2 injections per day for 5 days, 10 in total. And the first time was a bit hard for me because I'm really scared of syringes and I just hate them. But you can do it yourself. And so I did it in my thighs, and I just did it so slowly that I barely noticed it. And after a few days, it's just so normal to do this, and it's totally okay. Definitely worth to save a life for. 4 days after my first injection, we flew to Frankfurt again. It is now October 2012, and I could take my boyfriend with me. In the morning we had to be really early at the transplantation clinic, and I was a little bit anxious, but not really. I think the medical exam was harder for me because you're always like, oh, maybe I'm sick myself or something. And this was just like a blood transfusion, so I was quite calm. And then you get into your comfy clothes and they make a blood test, a final blood test, to see if everything's still alright. And then you get hooked up to the machines. And I will definitely show a few pictures of me hooked up, because I only can barely explain those medical terms. So you get one of those blood pipe things in every arm, and they are flexible, so you can still use your arms, which is really good because you're there for a few hours. My veins, they are really small and you can barely see them. So I had a bit of a problem because the blood wasn't flowing very well. I had to pinch a softball for all the 5 hours I lay there, which wasn't as bad, it just gets automatic. And other than that, it was really just lying around, and the nurses and my boyfriend, they brought me drinks and sandwiches and candy, and I could watch TV the whole time. So in Frankfurt it's not a real hospital, it's more like a blood transfusion center, and it's a really big light room, and there were maybe 5 or 7 more people who did the bone marrow transplantation on that day. So you're not alone, and it's kind of like a blood laundry. So on one side your blood goes out of your body, and on the other side it goes back again, and it's kind of cool. Then you also get a saline solution to let your blood flow a bit better, and you definitely have to pee from that stuff. So you pee in your bed with a bedpan and with the help of the nurses, and you could probably definitely get up on the toilet, but then they have to unhook you from all the machines and do it again when you come back. So you definitely want to better pee in a bedpan. And yeah, that took me around 5 hours, and then I could change again, and then we could wait in the waiting room. And what they do in the meantime is they count your stem cells. I don't know how they do it. If they didn't get enough stem cells, you have to come back the next day and do it again. And that could be because, let's say you're a young woman and you weigh 50 kilograms, and then you donate for a man who weighs 150 kilograms, so 3 times your weight. That probably means that you have to do it again. But when I was there, it was so that all the girls could go home, and then there was, I think, 1 or 2 men who had to stay the next day, so you never really know. For me it was enough, and I could go home. And what happens now is that a special medical team comes and freezes your stem cells, and then they get them to wherever your patient is as soon as possible, and they are already prepared, so they got a really kind of, you could say, deadly chemotherapy. All their stem cells are gone now. They absolutely have no immune system. They have to be somewhere without any germs, and there they wait for your blood cells to arrive, and that must be absolutely horrifying for them. So my stem cells go over as quickly as possible and do their good in another person. So that's basically everything I needed to know at that time, and I was quite happy. The next day I could phone the person responsible for me at the DKMS, my transplantation agency. First thing she asks is how I feel, how I felt the week before, how I think the transplantation was going, if I was happy with the medical personnel there. And yeah, I told her it was great, amazing. The nurses at that blood transfusion center in Frankfurt, they were absolutely amazing. Everything was great. And then I asked her, so can you finally tell me the gender of my patient and what country they are from? And so my patient was a woman from the United States, and she was nearly the same age as my mother. And it's just so strange to hear that the first time, to really not put a face to your patient, but to somehow understand what they must be like. That's also the first time you can have anonymous contact. So the first thing I did when I went home is I wrote a huge letter, and I wrote about all the health wishes I have for her and my side of the transplantation, like what I had to do, and just wanted to tell her how this whole process happened. And then I told her a bit about me, but you can't tell everything because of the anonymous factor. So I was really happy to get that to her, and I don't know, I hope that she could have read it in time, because practically a month later I got the letter that she has passed away. And that's just really sad. Like, you really want to help, and it was probably too late. Nothing you can do. You don't have insurance that you really can save someone. You know, it depends on so many factors, and so she passed away. But I did my best, and I hope that I could have given them a bit more hope in her last days. The United States and Germany as well are one of those countries where you can have real contact after 2 years after the transplantation, and that would have been now. Because she passed away, there's no really 2-year thing anymore. So a few months later I got a letter from the DKMS, and they asked me if they can give my address to the family, because the family asked for contact. So I absolutely did that, and I was kind of glad. I mean, it's a really sad thing, and you don't really know what to say, but I just wanted to write a few nice words to her family as well. And so I wrote to her husband, and he wrote back, and he sent me a really, really nice thank you. And yeah, it's really sad, but like I said, you can't focus on what can happen, because if you don't donate, then they probably wouldn't live as well. So there's a chance, and for a lot of people there's a quite big chance, for example for kids with birth defects. And there are just so many health issues you can have. It's not just blood cancer, like I said, so many things where you could need a stem cell transplantation. And even if you can't donate because maybe you're too old, or you have a sickness yourself, or you just don't want to, then please help spread the word, because that's the most important thing, that people know more about it. And I think there are many people who would do it, but they don't even know what this is. So please help and share this video. And I really hope you enjoy this, and whenever there are any questions I would love to answer them. And if you don't want to write in the comments, then write an email to me. It's all in the info box, and I will definitely answer. So thank you very much for watching, and I wish you a long and healthy life. Bye bye everyone.